Should you limit who you date based on cultural differences? Well, we're going to explore that, so stay tuned. I actually wrote a blog a while back about whether or not you should date if there are cultural differences. And it actually applies to religious differences, political differences, and various other things that are foundational to who you are and your culture in the world. So I'm actually going to read through my blog post, and if there's any parts that need further explanation, I will interject myself. Okay, so cultural differences in dating. Should I limit who I date? Short answer, no. Long answer, nope. Dealing with cultural differences in dating, in the Western world at least, but it still boils down to some of the basics, which is chemistry, similar values, and compatible long-term goals. What do you mean? Well, it's pretty basic. Chemistry, okay, are you actually attracted to each other physically? 90% of the time, women don't go for physical attractiveness right away. Like, it actually takes time for a woman to develop feelings. In 90% of the cases that I've interviewed for long-term partners who are happy, like 10 years or more, 90% of the time, the woman wasn't physically attracted to the guy at the beginning, but she wasn't repulsed. So that is the key. For women, they can't be repulsed. And that's why, separate side note, the friend zone isn't a terrible thing. If you're always avoiding the friend zone, I should do another video. If you want me to tell you, I think I've already done a video on this, like the benefits of the friend zone. I can't remember if I have. If I have, look for it. If I haven't, let me know if you want me to do a video on the benefits of the friend zone. Because most long-term relationships started off in the friend zone for women. Most of the time, men are attracted to women right away. They know or you don't know, but maybe 10% of the time, they're also surprised that they ended up with a woman they are with because they weren't initially attracted. So it's kind of the opposite. But anyways, back to the blog. Yeah, so aside from chemistry, values, and goals, the biggest influence in the happiness of long-term couples was attitude. Of the couples I've spoken with, attitude has been the glue, even though it is often the woman who adjusted her expectations and used the power of positive persuasion, as opposed to manipulation, to encourage desired behaviors in her partner, or to dissuade the negative ones. So in other words, be a ripple in your own pond, like in your own relationship pond. So let's refer back to the chemistry, values, and goals. Chemistry may be instant or may take some time getting acquainted before the spark ignites. Values need to be in alignment for long-term trust, as happens for all potential romantic partners. Goals and plans for the future must be compatible, as happens for all potential romantic partners. You need to know what your deal breakers and deal makers are. They may be different for someone of a different cultural background, or they might still align. The most important consideration when dealing with cultural differences and dating is communication, as it is for all singles getting to know each other. Never assume. This is why you have to actually filter, and especially if there are cultural differences, you still need to ask the pertinent questions about what the other person's belief systems are, what their long-term goals are. Like the basic thing with long-term goals, you may not know where you're going to be in your career in 10 or 15 or 20 years, but you'll have an idea of whether or not money is really important and you want to save like crazy so you can retire early, or if you want to live in the moment and spend your extra money enjoying life now. Like, those are two things that if you don't agree on, you could have a definite conflict in a relationship, because one person wants to save and scrimp for a future life of freedom and someone wants to have some freedoms now. So these are things that you really need to know if they're deal breakers or not, as well as what politics or religious specifics actually mean in your life. So the most important consideration when dealing with cultural differences in dating is communication. So dealing with cultural differences, take away whether you're Chinese, Indian, Syrian, any immigrant or culturally affected offspring, or a shy guy or reserved gal, or simply ultra private, your challenge is to communicate your wants, needs, desires in a respectful, effective way. Editor's note: both people need to have an open mind about the kind of wants, needs, and desires that the other person may have in a relationship. So here's the other thing too. Like, sometimes with cultural differences, for example, in like East Asian countries, there's a more sort of traditional stance on partnership. So like the man is the head of the household. Well, that's sometimes the case. Well, not sometimes. It is the case in like Christian religion as well for a lot of people, but some people are more strict about that and other people aren't. So that would be one of those areas where you need to discuss how your values and belief systems about that particular topic would play out in a relationship. If there's a woman and she wants to be like feminist and independent, and there's no freaking way she's going to be the submissive one in a relationship, and you are completely traditional and the leader of the house and whatever, then that's something you need to discuss. It may be a deal breaker. It may be a deal breaker for you or for her. You cannot change the fundamental values of the other person. So that's what you have to determine, is whether or not your fundamental values in and of themselves are not only negotiable, but whether they're compatible. You don't have to be exact the same to be able to get along. It's just a matter of compatibility, and all relationships require compromise. I believe that relationships should not require sacrifice unless you have children. You have to sacrifice for your children. That's just the way it is. If you don't, you're a bad parent. I've said that right out loud. I'm really being, what's the word? Provocative. Yeah. In this video. So I think parents have a responsibility to, yes, so they have to sacrifice for the children. But for each other, compromise, yes, sacrifice, no. So you need to be able to determine what are the actual deal breakers in all the areas that are really, really important to you. And sometimes that means that if you do have cultural differences or culturally different backgrounds, it's not going to work. It might not work, but depends on how important and how strict you are within those cultural differences, and whether or not there is flexibility on your or your potential partner's side. So it's possible, yes. Don't assume just because you have different backgrounds that it's not going to work. There are people who are together who have vastly different backgrounds and belief systems as far as religion goes, politics. Some people are, I know a couple who they've been together for a long time, and they vote for opposing political parties, and they do have areas where they completely disagree, but it's not enough to throw away the relationship because of those belief systems. So they choose to mostly not talk about them, because why would you want to just fight about something that is really not going to have a huge impact on your relationship and just make things not feel good? So try to always look for the positives in your potential partner. Always give 5 love affirmations for every 1 criticism. You should actually never criticize your partner, but you can ask for your needs to be met in certain ways. And yeah, I think that you can actually specifically date someone with a different cultural background than you and be successful. The key is in how you disagree, how you treat each other when you disagree or when you argue, because you are going to argue about things in your relationship. You will not see eye to eye on all the things in the relationship, and you have to determine what are the deal breakers and what are the deal makers, what's most important, and things that you just won't compromise on, and why. Like, why? Is it ego? Is it pride? Is it something? Like, you have to sort of look at yourself and go, okay, maybe is that really something that I'm willing to throw away this relationship based on that one thing, on that one difference? And if you are, then you shouldn't even start the relationship. So these are things you need to explore like right at the very beginning. And you don't need to make a commitment to a relationship that you're not sure about yet. If you think that you want to be with this person for the long haul, and it is a haul, then you need to explore. And especially if there's significant cultural differences and you know that going in, then give yourself extra time to be sure. I hope this answered your question. If you have a specific question about this, write it in the comments below and I will try to answer. And again, reminder that YouTube doesn't always notify me about comments on older videos. So if I don't reply on an older video, then find a new video and comment there and I will answer your question there. And please like, subscribe, share if you think this might help somebody. And I will see you in the next video. In your life. So you might even, this is kind of, okay. So if you just say, I don't like a particular political leader because of who they are or the party that they represent, that is actually rather close-minded. Sorry, but it's close-minded. Find that if you talk more about the specific policies, you might discover that your opinion and values about something are not that far off. So for example, this is really, I don't like going into politics because people get their back up and totally take it the wrong way. But whether or not you are a supporter of Trump, for example, let's say you don't like Trump, or let's say a woman doesn't like Trump because she doesn't like the way the border situation is being handled with Mexico or with, refugees and stuff. So it may not be that she's disagreeing about the general immigration policy, but that it's the way it's being handled at the border or whatever. So if you can talk about the specifics of something and say, okay, well, what is it about that particular policy that really, bothers you? Then you might find that there is some common ground. Like, okay, I'm going to put it right out there. I believe that if you're going to come into a country, and this is not about refugees, but in general, if you're going to come into a country, then there are certain rules and regulations and qualifications that you need to abide by. Like, everybody has the same rules, regulations to get into a particular country. And I think it should be the same for everybody. So, does that mean that I support Trump? I'm actually really not that political, but I do believe that you shouldn't just open the doors for everybody to come in. That might be something that my belief system is in line with Trump, and there may be things. Okay, first of all, I would never vote for Hillary because I believe that she just stayed with her husband because she wanted to advance her own career. I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. I can't believe I'm actually saying this. But the fact that she's a woman does not trump the fact that she's, I don't think, trustworthy. And I think she's just, I shouldn't even say this. Anyways, I don't like Hillary. I wouldn't have voted for Hillary. If I had to make a choice, I would have voted for Trump, despite everything else. I actually would have voted for Bernie, but I'd taken the chance that he'd not die during the term because he's old. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Anyway, all right, let's move on. What was I saying? Da-da-da.